Hey guys, welcome back to another easy programming tutorial. Today I want to show you another type of sort. This is called the index sort. Last time I showed you the bubble sort, which isn't all that efficient because what it does is it moves around everything inside the subscripts, inside the arrays around to sort. It only works mostly with if you have just one array, and let's face it, most programs don't have just one arrays. So index sort, it just moves around the subscripts around and changes the order, which is a lot more efficient because you're just moving one integer, one digit, rather than maybe 100 different arrays if it comes down to that. So the you see in front of you is the bubble sort array, the bubble sort program that I did for you last time, and I'm just going to change this into the index sort. This program is going to change in a way that the user enters the name, and I'm going to change num7 into grade 7, and the user enters a grade based on the name, and it'll sort based on last name or the name. You can have two names, but I'll just use one name. So we'll have just two parallel arrays. It should be enough. And yes, the font is bigger. I'm using a size 15 font. I've had people message me telling me to use bigger fonts so they don't have to zoom in to view everything. So hopefully this helps. So the first thing I want to do is include string. Since we will be using name, which is going to be a string, which is going to include string, I'm going to change num into grade, and then I'm going to include another variable string name 7. I'm going to have to enter another one. This is going to be the index 7. The index 7 is going to be the subscript of everything else. I'll explain that to you. We're going to keep the I and j. This is the nested for loop that sorts out the bubble sort, and we're going to use this exact same style for the index sort, so nothing really changes here except for some of the values inside because we don't have num anymore. We're going to change that. But first we're going to change the prompt, so we're going to please enter name, change this to num I, name I, excuse me, and then we'll do cout, please enter grade. cn grade I. So let's say the first name is going to be Adam, and the grade is going to be, let's say, 95. The second name will be, let's say, April, and it'll be 96. It'll go up to 7. It'll go from 0 to 6, and you'll have that. One thing about the index sort is that you have to initialize all the values within the index sort. That means index I has to be equal to something. So we're going to need another for loop. So we'll do I equals to 0. It's going to be the same thing as here. So what you can do is you can just copy it to save time. There, and you want to initialize it. So we'll do index I equals to I. This means that when I index I is 0, so when I is 0, index I will be 0, index 0 will be 0, and then when I is 1, index 1 will be 1. It'll just go up to from 0 to 6. It's just a base value and initial value for index I, because we have to tell the program what index I has to be, because if we use it without initializing it, it'll just have a random gibberish number which won't make any sense, and it'll give you a bunch of errors. So remember that you have to initialize the index. And then we're going to go down here and we're going to edit the for loop that we used for the bubble loop last time. We're going to keep int temp. This for loop and this for loop, they're going to remain exactly the same. If you need an explanation on why this looks like this, why this looks like this, look at my bubble sort video. I explain it a lot more there. But just to go through it quickly, we're comparing the value of I to the value of j, every time it goes around the loop, and we're only doing it once. So whenever I is 0, j is going to be I plus 1, which is going to be 1. If I is 2, j is going to be 3. It just goes up to the max value. We're comparing one by one. But again, look at my bubble sort video for a better explanation. Since we don't have num anymore, we're going to change all the nums to name. Let's do that first. Actually, we won't be needing these, so let's just explain this here. It says if name sub I is greater than name sub j, then it'll go into the if loop. We're going to need a kind of nested subscript here. So we have to do index I. It's saying if name sub index I is greater than name sub index j, then it'll go into the if loop. So let's say, since we initialized index up here, let's say index sub 1 will be 1. So the value of index sub 1 will be 1. So if name sub index 1, which is 1, so it'll basically look like name sub 1. Yeah, I guess I'll just put it up here, so it'll look like name sub 1. Okay, that's what it'll look like. And if it's greater than name sub index sub j, let's say j is 2, and index sub 2 is going to be 2. So it's going to be name sub 2. That's basically what it's going to look like. The index just takes its own subscript value. And here we're not going to be changing the value of name. We're going to be changing the value of index. So it's going to change num to index. We're going to put the value of index I, let's say index I is 1, into temp. And let's say index j is 2, because if index I is 1, it's going to be 1 more than I. So 2 will go into I, index sub I, and then index sub j, which will be 2, will be assigned whatever the value of temp is, which in this case it'll be 1. So it'll just switch around. Same thing with the bubble sort. And basically that's all about it for the index sort. This is the output. I'll just change the output. I'll get rid of this. We'll do name. Remember, you have to change the index. Since you changed the index, you have to include the index when you're outputting. We'll do, whoops. Let's do this, and grade index I. Okay. I'll just put a C out here for an extra line between the input and the output. Yeah, again, you have to put index I because we moved the values of index I. If you just put grade I, you'll get whatever you inputted over here. That's not what you want. We change around the values of index I and index j based on what we saw fit. And if you do this, if you run this, it'll run. Again, you have the cin.ignore instead of system pause. You can use either one. Let's run it. Debug. And it runs. Just please enter name. Let's enter a few names. We'll do John. Enter grade, let's say 95. April. Let's do 100. Let's do May. So 90. We'll do Rigel. Let's do 93. How many did I put up? 7. Okay. Kevin, 85. James, 90. And Michael, we'll do 80. And 80, it should be 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I put this, it'll output based on name. So it'll be April first, followed by James, and then John, and then Kevin, and then Michael, and then, and then May, and then Michael, and then Rigel. Let's do it. Right there. April had 100. James had 90. Right. John had 95. Kevin had 85. I know it's not aligned properly because I just put in something. But again, this is the index sort. It's sorted it based on the name. If you want to do it by grade, you can do that too. Just changed. If you want to do it by name, just change this to grade, and you can just leave this part the same. With any index sort, you can actually keep this part the same everywhere. When you're doing a bubble sort, you're going to have to change the value of whatever index is to whatever their variable is. And it's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. Once you get the hang of it, you can keep doing it over and over again. This is just an example. later on I want to show you the index sort using different functions, including void, maybe some return functions, because they'll be neater. It'll be simpler. You'll have one for initializing, one for calculating the index, one for sorting, and one for outputting. So maybe that'll be the next video. Maybe I'll show you 3 or 4 parallel arrays and go with that. Well, there you have it. This is the index sort. It's a lot more efficient than the bubble sort. It's a lot better in my opinion. If you have any questions about this, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to help you. If you have any suggestions for future videos, do let me know. Thanks for watching. Remember to visit easyprogramming.net for all my programming tutorials. And thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe.